Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chronic Conversations. I'm Rachel. Unfortunately, Dina is not going to be here today. She's resting, which I thought actually meant a great opportunity for me to talk about the importance of rest and specifically how I rest, what's worked for me well as a patient for the past 17 years. Because when I first started going down this road, getting diagnosed and everything, I did not have any guides. I was just told I needed to rest. I didn't really know what that meant, and I don't think I did it very well for a really long time. So I'm going to talk about how I rest, what are the specific gadgets and tools that make that easier for me, especially if I'm really amped up and wired and dealing with a lot of PEM following an intense activity. And I also will talk a little bit about some of the mindset uh, approaches or changes, shifts, whatever, that made it easier for me to rest when I had been used to being like a really active, high achieving person. So to start, I just want to clarify this is primarily going to apply to people who are more on the mild to moderate scale. For patients who are more severe, the resting thing is much more complicated because a lot of patients like that, unfortunately, are already bedbound, and that's an area where we need a lot more rest. I also want to clarify that when I'm talking about rest, this is a part of the supportive practices that I do as a patient, like going to therapy that help maintain my quality of life, but I don't attribute any sort of recovery or spontaneous improvement in my health solely to resting. I just think it's essential because if I don't rest, I just feel so much worse. But I don't want to give any false hope or suggest that by resting that you are going to cure all your health problems. That's not the case, at least in my experience. Some people may differ. You can comment on that. So, when you're first diagnosed, I think a lot of people in this community are very high achieving type A people. They're going from being used to pushing themselves and getting a lot of positive benefits from that, especially if you're training, you're doing endurance sports, or you're working hard on a project. Generally speaking, you're looking to push the limits of your physical and mental capacity to reach a higher plateau, reach a higher place, to achieve some success. And unfortunately, those strategies just don't apply anymore when you're sick. So for me, I had to realize that I conceptualized rest as this absence of activity and something that I dreaded because I felt like it was just compounding the fact that I wasn't doing anything with my life, and instead start to reframe it in my head as an essential activity and a part of my recovery, a part of my healthcare management that was just as important, if not more so, than taking my medications and supplements and adjusting my diet. Excuse me, I have something in my eye. This is so annoying. And so when I started to view rest like that, I started to see that instead of it being a reactive thing, so I'm tired, I'm crashing, therefore I'm going to rest, I needed it to be proactive. I needed to schedule it in my calendar the same way I would schedule a doctor's appointment. And when I started to have more predictable rest periods, then I could break my day up into manageable chunks, and that made pacing a lot easier because I wasn't going on these long stretches of activity without resting. I knew I had a hard stop at 11 a.m. That's when I was going to go lie down and zone out for a bit. And I wasn't going to push myself to the point where I had gone too far. I think a lot of times patients struggle with knowing when PEM is going to hit because we don't have any good internal metrics for saying this is too much. We often don't figure out what too much is until we've gone too far and it's after the fact and we're crashing. So for me, rest was about preempting that and getting to a point where, excuse me, I knew that I was going to rest and I wasn't going to wait until I was tired to do it. So for me, what worked was to schedule two rests throughout the day, one around 11 or 12, and then again another one in the afternoon around 3 or 4. And for the most part, I just avoid scheduling things during those times. If I do have to schedule something like that, then I know I'm going to have to compensate for it during some other time of the day. That's especially the case for doctor's appointments that are difficult to schedule, or if I have to drive for some reason. I can't always adhere to that really strict rest schedule, but when I can do it 80, 90% of the time, my general mood, fatigue levels, everything else, just so much better. Another thing that was important to me when I first started thinking about rest more seriously and as an integral component of my health process and not just something that was essentially punishment, like, great, you're sick, you can't do the things you like, and now you have to go stay in bed all day. I started to view rest as something very peaceful and meditative instead of I'm going to zone out on my phone or my computer. When I first got diagnosed, I did a lot of binge watching. I watched a lot of episodes of The West Wing, and also The Amazing Race, which I think must have been like really escapist for me because people were like traveling around the world doing all kinds of intense physical conquests, and I was at home lying on my parents' couch not doing that. But I would do that for hours on end and then couldn't figure out why I still felt wired and why I still felt so exhausted. At some point, took me a very long time to get to this. I started lying down, turning off my computer, and finding a rest setup that was like a sensory deprivation cave of sorts where I could achieve this Zen-like state. I usually don't fall asleep. I'm just resting my body, I'm resting my brain, and I feel extremely relaxed and it feels so healing. I don't always wake up or get up from my rest feeling refreshed, but I feel worse if I skip it. That's how I know that it's beneficial for me. I wish we had better ways of knowing how much people need to rest and what is too much, what is too little. But I'm not at that point. I don't have that data. I wish I did. If somebody does, please tell me. I'd be curious for those of you watching, if you use fitness trackers, if you found that leveraging the data from your heart rate variability or your body battery score or whatever gives you some insight into how you can rest better. So, my rest setup. Initially, um, I would listen to a podcast because I am intense and I think like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do anything, at least I'm going to learn something. I would listen to like public policy or history podcasts, which is crazy. I don't do that anymore. My goal is to be as relaxed as possible. And since I am generally walking in that tired but wired line, I'm physically tired, but my brain is still active. And so for me, listening to a relaxing yoga nidra video on YouTube or relaxing music, a calming playlist on Spotify where it's like tones or something, or songs that I know well, but nothing that makes me feel like I have to really pay attention to it too hard. Nothing with like crazy intense voices or anything like that. I don't like that, but I just want something really gentle and calming. I will link to my favorite Yoga Nidra video. It's from this very pleasant, very sweet British woman. She seems to have a really good voice for these things, and I find it so helpful. And then I have a couple playlists on Spotify that I really like, and I can share those if you would like. So, headphones in. The other thing that's critical is I have this super old iPad. It's like 10 years old, 10 plus years old. It basically doesn't do anything beyond Safari and Spotify, so it limits my potential for distraction. The Safari capacity is super low too because it's so old. The iOS updates are like totally out of date. If I were to bring my phone into my room, I would get distracted. I would be checking Twitter, I would be playing word games, I'd be texting my friends. I would not be able to rest. So for me, having an out-of-date iPad is really helpful. If you don't have the capacity for that, honestly, something as analog as like an old CD player where you can play a relaxing CD might be helpful too. But for me, keeping my phone out of the zone of relaxation is critical. I put headphones in. I just have normal earbuds. I'm a Luddite, so I have wired earphones still. And then I also really like to use an eye mask. I have two eye masks because, again, I'm extra. I have this one, which has a really nice adjustable strap in the back. This is also weighted and it has kind of a cooling effect. I tend to use this one at night when I'm sleeping, and then I keep this one for the daytime. I got it as a Christmas present. It's a Nod Pod, so it's like a weighted blanket for your eyes, but it's the same thing. You have weights, they're segmented with this really lovely stitching. You can wrap it around your head or you can just put it flat on your head. And it has two sides to it. One is warming and one is more cooling. I find that the sensation of weight on my eyes is very calming. I find that makes it much easier for me to relax. In keeping with this theme, I also use a weighted blanket. I got one for Christmas from Amazon. Happy to link it. It's awesome. I use it all the time. I find it very soothing for me. For people who experience a lot of pain, that might not be a great option. Maybe just a normal blanket would be better. But for me, I find that the weighted blanket really adds an extra layer of relaxation to the experience. And then finally, I have a PEMF heating pad from Higher Dose that I got as part of the Black Friday sale like 4 years ago. It's still going strong. I use it a ton. I don't know how much weight to give the PEMF settings. I think they're relaxing. I don't think they're going to be causing any dramatic changes in my health. So if you're looking to get something, a traditional heating pad might be totally fine. I just got it on a whim because it was on sale and I thought it'd be worth trying, and I do like it. And it is one thing I do travel with. If I'm driving, I will take that with me and I will use it when I get to my destination to help calm myself down, because for me, driving is very like adrenaline filled. I feel like I'm on edge, I'm paying attention. When I get done with that, it's hard for me to come down from that intensity and that high, and it's easy for me to continue overdoing activity because I haven't quite settled down. So I find that when I get to my destination, I set up my heating pad, I do my yoga nidra video, maybe I'll do a shorter version. I'll put on my eye mask, get my headphones in, and doing that for at least 30 minutes just to calm myself down after something intense like driving or any other activity where I feel like I'm really pushing my limits and overexerting myself and on the precipice of a crash. That's when I get into my rest setting. I also have an older PEMF mat that I will lie down on. Again, it primarily serves for purposes of relaxation. I don't know that the specific frequencies have caused me any like major changes or improvements. And then the other thing I'm toying around with is the ultrasound device. These were super popular on Twitter this summer. Using this on the vagus nerve, so on the left side here, is very calming. I have to be careful with this because sometimes it's too calming and it'll just knock me out and I'll like basically fall asleep. So if I know I have to get up for something, I don't want to do something like that. But it's something I'm curious about learning more about, because I think at least on the vagus nerve, I don't use it on anywhere else on my body. I found it very calming and very helpful before sleep, or if I'm trying to take a nap and I haven't slept well all week and I need to catch up on things. So, with all that to be said, resting when you're used to pushing yourself is very hard. It's just a really difficult mindset shift to make. And the more you can start to view rest as productive in and of itself and less as a punishment or the absence of activity, I think the better. I think it's a really difficult change to accept when you are used to being able to push yourself and you didn't need that level of recovery. The more you can do to schedule it and even look forward to it. In college, I would go outside in one of those like camping hammocks and I would rest. I would call it hammocking. But to me, it was finding a way to make resting more exciting and appealing because I was doing something outside. I was resting, but in a hammock. So it was exciting. And then I would get like funny looks from people on campus. But more day to day, I'm just resting upstairs. And it's really important for me. I would love to hear from all of you what you do for your rest. Do you schedule your rest? Do you have specific things like eye masks, special pillows, blankets, etc., that are helpful for you? And also, when you are super amped up, when you're having trouble coming down from that high, maybe you just got done socializing, or you had a doctor's appointment, or you went for a short walk and you feel that like really amped up, wired, but tired feeling. Do you have any techniques that you use to help calm yourself down and get into a more restful state? Because I know for me, those are the periods when I'm most likely to push my body too far. So we will be back next week. Again, this is Chronic Conversations. Please like, subscribe, comment. We've gotten so much wonderful feedback from people who are listening. It's been so gratifying to see that the things we're talking about are resonating with fellow patients. That's our whole goal in setting this up. So we will continue to have meaningful, difficult, and poignant conversations about what it's like to live with these conditions. And we're so happy that you are listening and watching along. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.